Aaron Carlson, myself, Michael Gary, Chris Hood. Is Kim online?
Yeah.
Yep.
Kim Dunsmore is here. All right, it's the official head count. You're all set. Next up, open forum. Is anyone here for open forum? Everyone looks over their shoulder and says no. All right, that takes care of that. It gives us 5 extra minutes. Next up is the consent agenda, and I assume we need to add.
One additional bill. Bills.
Would anyone like to make a motion to?
I would make a motion to add the
You can just approve the consent agenda with it.
Okay.
Okay, all right. We'll do that. Does anyone have any questions about the minutes or about bills or anything at all? All right, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the additional bill?
I would so move.
All right, second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, that carries. Off we go. And officially on the agenda, it's the HRA report.
As opposed to unofficial, Mayor. Do you want me to pop up here? Is that all right?
Yes,
Please
if you
do.
would, please. And introduce yourself as well.
Oh, happily. I'll wait for my colleague here.
Yes.
Hello, Jason Hale, the Executive Director of Cook County HRA. And I'll let Teresa introduce herself.
Hello, Teresa Biden, new Executive Director of the EDA. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
So, a report, I believe Council saw last time I included, or Mike had included in the packet, just kind of a list of things we're working
Jason,
on.
just a moment. If you can use that.
This one?
Yep.
You can each have your own.
Oh, no,
No?
you can't
No, we
actually.
can't. No, we can't. We have to
Yeah.
share?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. This one, Patrick?
That's perfect.
Number eight, cool. Okay.
Right.
8 ball.
I think we're live now. There's a lot going on. So if there are any specific questions, I'll be happy to answer them, but I'll just run through a couple of highlighted things that we've talked about before. Top among them, the Switchback Village apartment project. So you probably noticed that their trees are still mostly standing. The dirt has not moved. I want to give you an update as to why. This is a frustrating reason, but it's the reason. The part of the funding package for the project was IRR's generous grant that they provided the HRA. Part of that process from the state is that there's a certain procurement requirement, which includes public bid requests. So the developer did that, put it in the Cook County News Herald, the Duluth News Tribune for the right amount of time, waited, did not get any responses. That's the first time that anyone in IRR knows of that happening. So, which led to the attorneys asking each other, what do we do? Unfortunately, these things can take longer than you want, and so they were going back and forth and ultimately added about 3 weeks. So the trick here is they couldn't do anything, and if I recall, I was just talking with Administrator Roth this morning, the land use permits are submitted, they have, the property transaction is closed, like they were ready to go. But they couldn't do anything until IRRR confirmed. Okay, you didn't get any bids, do you have to repost? That was the big contention, because reposting is then another 3 weeks at least. And the developer had already secured, they said, we didn't get any responses, we went to on the private market and found somebody who was willing to do it. So they were ready to go. Long story short, or long, sorry, is they couldn't get it, approval for it in time. They got it it would have been a week and a half ago. And by that time, the earthwork contractor basically said, we're running up against frost footing issues. They have to blast because there's bedrock. And so they said, we're all frustrated. They wanted to start now, we wanted to start now. But they said, to be prudent, they have to wait till spring to start. So that's where that's at. But everything else is ready to go. It's just, now it's up to Mother Nature. So that could be May, it could be June, who knows? It depends on when they can actually do it. And there are road restrictions and all those things. And there's Fifth Avenue, of course, which is a complication. And I think that's on your agenda later to talk about the construction for that. So I have to work with the city or the county engineer on the plans for next year's phase, because there's another segment of that being done, so there's just more coordination we're going to have to do. Any questions about that project? I know that's a big one, of course, and the council was instrumental in helping making that happen, so I wanted to update you on that.
So that doesn't affect any of the contractors involved or anything that way? They're all locked in and ready to go on the list for next spring?
Well, the contractor that they've secured, so a lot of the
Well,
things.
sub, whatever.
Yeah,
call it.
yeah. They do self-perform a bunch of their work, so which is why they can do the project, honestly. So they have a lot more control over the timelines. But for the earthwork piece, that contractor said, yeah, we're still interested in the spring. We'll do it again and we'll rebid in spring. Because a lot can change between now and May. But
Bid?
well, they might, this is the sort of ironic part. After the back and forth, in interpretation of statute, the attorneys agreed, you don't have to rebid, as long as the HRA is comfortable with that. And I told my board this, it highlights something that we all know, but it's more evidence if we need it. It's hard to get people to come up to do work here. Like, they literally didn't get any responses. And it's not a small project. So I guess the point is, like, there's another piece of evidence that even for bigger size stuff, they couldn't get people, and that never happened with IRRR. So we stumped them. So they don't need to rebid necessarily. We already have the agreement that that's okay. But then they already have a relationship with this other contractor too. So we have plenty of time now, unfortunately, so that's not going to be a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, that's that. Another important project or effort is the Birchwood Apartments. One Roof Community Housing, of course, as you know, has been working, and the HR has been working closely with them on this. They have the documentation to take official ownership over underway with rural development. If you've ever worked with a federal agency, you know that that's not very fast most of the time. And so they've also submitted a tax credit application. And I'm not going to get, sometime you want to talk tax credits coming out, I'll be happy to talk to bore you to tears. The short version here, though, is in September, Minnesota Housing, who administers the tax credits from HUD for the whole country, Minnesota Housing sends out what's called an early no. So for people who've applied, which is a lot, there have been a lot of, I think it was like 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 applications to actual funded projects last year. The early no basically says, thanks, we're not going to be funding your application this year. They did not get that, which means they're still in the running. And things look positive. If, and I'm going to say when, because I'm optimistic here, they get the announcement in December, that means they finalize the acquisition process and then they find a closing with Minnesota Housing, and they already have a contractor who's doing some bidding so they can rehab the 24 units. But all of that hinges on Minnesota. I mean, the cost to rehab is significant, millions of dollars. So that's all hinging on the award from Minnesota Housing. But I just kind of want to keep people up to speed on what's going on with that process. One Roof has a property manager there who's been doing good work, as I understand, and they're very happy with them so far, and they want to continue to do that. My hope is as other projects come up, we can continue to use, if that works out, like they're another option, because property management here is actually really difficult to get firms to, like, I think DW Jones was doing it for a long time, and they have left the market. So getting somebody who's willing to come up and do property management here is another challenge. So, looks positive. Other quick thing, the pilot project that how are you folks, as Administrator Mike or Mike, Administrator Mike Roth, he doesn't even have a last name. Has he talked about the envelope pilot project that we were doing in concert with the city at all, or? No. Great, okay. There's a collaboration that includes the HRA, the county, the city's sustainability coordinator, and CCLOP. And it is a pilot project to do rehab. Most of my and the HRA's efforts, it focuses on new construction because we just need more housing, but we can't ignore the fact that there are houses that could use help. So the county did what they called a healthy housing assessment program this last year, where they went into 21 homes that people requested and did safety, health, and energy inspections, looking for things like, trip hazards to, leaky windows, like kind of the whole gamut. We reviewed those as a team. The four of these entities said, hey, what can we do with these? We have this data. We don't want it to just be shelved. Like, here's your report. Good luck here are all the problems with your house, by the way, and good luck fixing them. So unfortunately, the program didn't provide a lot of money to address those things. So we thought, well, let's try to utilize some of that information to prove that there's a need for it. The HRA committed $20,000 as a seed money to provide grants for income qualifying households for things like windows and insulation. We're trying. There's a Venn diagram for sure of all these entities of preserving the structure, the envelope, and then also reducing energy, because that's safety, health, comfort. Like, there's just a lot of overlap there. And so we crafted a program, the HRA approved it, we have the documents for grant agreements, and I applied for an additional $50,000 from an entity that the HRA is a part of, the Northeast Minnesota Home Consortium, and we, on Friday, were awarded that $50,000. So now we have a $70,000 pot, which means we could use that to leverage more funding. But right now, we're in the process of we're opening the scope a little bit. So originally it was intended for just the people who participated in that program who had window and insulation needs. It wasn't 21, it was like 6 or 7 applications like that would have been eligible. Now with more money, we're looking at, okay, we need to revisit how we're going to approach this, and there are some other places we can request to bring some match dollars. So we're excited because it's a collaboration that's never happened, and how does this work? We're working those kinks out, and also because funders love to see collaborations, so we can, obviously we already, we got that 50,000. So I want to update you on that. The city's obviously playing a role, and Shane's been great to work with as a coordinator there. And as you can imagine, one of the challenges is just figuring out how to delegate and share the workload and figure that stuff out. But we have a plan, a path, and now some money. So, any questions about that program at all? Yeah.
So they used to have programs for low-income elderly to help with those kinds of things. Do they still have programs like that for energy efficiencies and whatnot?
Through AEOA? Are you working with AEOA?
Yep. Yeah. So Scott is director of AEOA. He's a part of this consortium that we sit at. He was sitting right next to me actually, and he's like, "Hey, we should talk." One of the challenges with the AEOA's program is its weatherization, and the amounts are pretty small. So we're looking at that's totally on my radar, and Scott and I want to figure out how we can work together on some of these things. But things like windows and attic insulation isn't part of their deal. And one of the things that the HRA is particularly concerned about is keeping structures alive as long as possible. So some of the things that they do are fantastic, but like replacing light bulbs, for example, or doing, sometimes they do like the sealants around doors with like weather stripping and stuff like that. They're all really good stuff. We were just looking for, it all came from those 21 inspections, there's a weird space where you don't want to do too much per project, because then it triggers things like, well, we should probably have covenants, and you don't want to give a grant to someone who then sells the house for more money the next year. Like that, it triggers all of those questions. So the grant amounts, the maximum project size is 5,000, and the grant's 4,000 of that. So there's a requirement so far for people to participate. They have to put 20%, but the rest is free, right? It's grant money for income eligible households for this window of this window, metaphorically and literally, of eligible things. So it's, again, we now have to kind of revisit if we're going to redesign anything, because we got additional funds, and there's another there's another agency who's
Like an outfit.
Yeah, more like an outfit who's indicated that they are interested in seeing this happen, so we could apply for additional funds. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited, but we'll see.
Yeah, so that was all in Jason's written report that he was kind enough to provide to us a couple of weeks ago as well.
Oh, it was in there. Okay,
Yeah.
great. I thought it was.
It's, well, you gave some great updates too. And so I just want to thank Jason for coming in person and having a little FaceTime with you. Earlier today, we talked about what we can do to kind of keep the flow of information going. And he provides a director's report with his board meetings that we're going to be getting have access to, and we'll just be mining it for items for a weekly update.
I just added Patrick. Sorry, Patrick, but now you're on the list to receive those. So thank you, Minister. I have just one more, and then I'll actually turn over to Teresa if she has any words of wisdom she'd like to bestow. Some of you might be familiar with the Heights Project. It's the Cook County Real Estate Fund is a group of local investors. They did the Birch Park. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm sure figure,
that way.
That one got done, and that was the, okay. And they are also, they've been working, they acquired the property up by yonder, and they've been working on trying to do a housing project there. Well, I've been very involved with them for the last several months. And I think it's going to be about a 34-unit project, a workforce project, and we're going to be applying for some funds. The HRA is on their behalf. Again, I've been working really closely on project design and pro formas and all the fun background things. But I wanted you to be aware of that. We're looking at kind of rounding out the sources and uses. But that we're hoping, and the team is hoping, that it's a spring construction start. They've identified a contractor, Ideal Homes. I don't know if you're familiar with those folks out of Barnum. They They're a wholesaler, and one of the outfits again, watching like old time TV or something. One of their wholesaler partners is Dynamic Homes. I think they're out of Detroit Lakes, and they make quality stuff, and so they're really interested in doing a larger multifamily project. So yeah, so the team went down and actually looked at a project in Cloquet, the similar size that they had built, and they're excited, making some modifications, but we're planning on submitting applications over the winter. That's when the planning and sort of funding packaging happens, so that you can ideally start in the spring. So yeah, more to come on that.
Cool.
Anything else? Any questions?
What about, I remember you talking about a project with the school. Is that progressing still?
Which, Birch Grove or
ISD
ISD?
166, yep.
Yeah, so still talking with them. That's a longer process. I met with them about a month ago, and they gratefully obtained a wetland delineation, and I have a couple more that are in the works now, because if you don't get them by October, you have to wait till the spring to do them. So then you don't know what you're working with. So we have the wetland delineation. There's water. I have yet to see. It's kind of amazing. I show my board and they're like, which part's the land? It's kind of hard to tell. There's water. But there's enough property there that would make something worthwhile. So now I have to work with their board and figure out what wants to live there. They're honestly trying to assess, are there other uses in the future we might want? They're kind of figuring out what's the highest and best use for them. But the first thing we needed is what can you even build there if there's a bunch of wetlands? So, yep. So we just got that last week, and now we need to figure out the rest. Birch Grove School, that property north of Tofty, that's continuing too. They should be in the County Planning Commission agenda for November 7th, 4th, one of those 2 dates, for their plan development for their PUD application. And then they'll start some site clearing, I think, now just to get the road ready, and then they'll do the spring as well.
Oh, is there were you involved in the potential use of the business park lots?
Yes, we're going to be coming to Planning Commission next week
Okay.
about that. It's on the agenda next week, correct?
It is.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep,
We
and
have
actually,
a quorum too.
oh, terrific.
Yes.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Thank
Very
you.
useful.
And there are already some folks who are interested in doing some housing projects there. So, one of my due diligence things is, before I try to get any property, is anybody interested in building on it? We have no interest in just acquiring property that sits, and we have to get insurance on all those things. So people, it could be a great site for housing. Yeah. Any other questions? Sorry, there's a lot. There's my report.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
of course.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
You have to share microphones now.
Is this the other outfit you brought to
This
us?
is the newest outfit to.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have words of wisdom, but I could just share a little bit about myself. So I moved from Duluth. I worked for the city of Duluth for just over 7 years. Part of that was in the Parks and Recreation Division, doing park and trail improvement project, working a lot with DNR and such. And then most recently, I was a senior housing developer working in the Planning and Economic Development Division. So a lot of work with the Duluth EDA, City Council, St. Louis County, granting agencies like Minnesota Deed. Prior to that, I lived on the Iron Range, worked in the mining industry for a while. So it's fun to come back to a smaller community and have access to the things I love, like the outdoors. So hasn't even been a month yet, so I'll use a corny pun since we're talking about housing, getting the house in order, understanding what the existing programs, what our contracts are, what grants are outstanding, and getting kind of a flow for that and working with the board. So much to come. Folks have been really generous with their time, perspective, the history, and that's really, really helpful as you kind of get a lay of the land and what it means to live, work, do business here. So thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you both.
Yeah.
It's the night of reports. Chris, this is an important one. I mean, not that yours weren't important too. Sorry. They come out
No
really
judgment.
well.
Well, unfortunately, mine is not going to be as upbeat as that.
Well, couldn't you change it?
It was different.
We would be okay with that.
You can change your tone right now.
I could. Hi, everybody. So,
after you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm sorry. Pat Eliason, Cook County Sheriff.
We'll just look at the back of your computer if we think you want it to be more fun.
So, yeah, I'm here to talk about public safety, I guess, and what we are going to do to move forward. Unfortunately, we have, the hiring woes have hit Grand Marais now in Cook County. Especially in law enforcement, this has been a trend going on across the nation for several years now. And when I attended a administrators meeting just a few years ago, excuse me, with the state of Minnesota, at that time, there were not enough people in law enforcement school in the state of Minnesota to cover all the retirements coming up. Well, then you had the George Floyd thing and things since then where now there was a mass exodus of law enforcement folks. So with the retirements, the exodus, now we are stuck where there are more jobs than there are qualified people, I guess would be the way to put it. Which is kind of, it's funny for me because when I was trying to get into law enforcement back in 1993 and 94, there would be 700 people taking a test for one job. And now it's kind of the opposite. There's 700 jobs and there's one person. And when you throw on top of that the hiring bonuses and signing bonuses that some of the larger agencies are able to provide these people, you know, it's pretty tough to lure someone up to Cook County, and as we know with the housing issue, it's difficult for someone to move to Cook County and buy a home, making what they make as a deputy, especially step one deputy. So that kind of put us into this bind. We had one of our deputies went to Lake County last month, so that put us down to we're understaffed by one person. Next week, our jail administrator is going to be retiring, so Deputy Ben Hallberg is going to be stepping into that role, so that's going to put us down 2 full-time patrol staff. To maintain the schedule, I guess, for patrol and provide services for everybody in Cook County, we decided that we needed to take the 2 deputies that were dedicated to the city of Grand Marais, or you know, greater Grand Marais, I guess would be the best way to put it, incorporate them into the regular rotation, and all of the deputies would be responsible for the city of Grand Marais is what it's going to boil down to. Besides the 8 staff, patrol staff, I should say, Monday through Friday, from 7 in the morning till 5 o'clock at night, myself, Jail Administrator Hallberg, and Chief Deputy Will Sandstrom will be available to answer urgent calls in the city of Grand Marais. So we're not abandoning the city of Grand Marais, and I don't know if that's been the talk, because that is not the case whatsoever. We are going to respond to every call in the city of Grand Marais. We are going to maintain a patrol schedule that, if viable, one deputy can stick around, you know, the area, which is probably going to be expanded from what it is right now. What it is now is basically Devil's Track River to the east, Cut Face to the west, and the Four Corners to the north. So that's the city of Grand Marais patrol area. Okay. So that's probably going to be expanded a little bit, obviously, but yeah, it's a tough spot. We've had the job, the job openings advertised for several months now, and we have not received one viable candidate. We've had 3 people apply, and they didn't meet the minimum qualifications to even apply. So that's where we're at right now. So I'll take any questions if you guys have them.
Well, everyone has their own thoughts, but I think most of us understand exactly what you said. You can read the news and see it's everywhere. And I was just reading about Goodhue County and Star Tribune, same thing as us, and then they wanted to contract with the county, and the county didn't even think they could fulfill on it. And I have not heard, maybe the rest of you have. I haven't heard it from anybody, residents or whatever. So I'm sure there are thoughts and concerns. I'm really appreciative that you listed out the area covered, because I'm sure that most of us, I mean, I've talked to Mike with a little bit detail, but I don't know if the rest of the council's really heard, like, what was the normal before this happened? What was our coverage? And that's why I also asked for stats, just to know, like, what is really at risk here? And if the rest of our residents, are they making assumptions and we just don't really know? Like, really, we don't get a lot of calls about break-ins or, whatever it is, but that's why I wanted reports. And then also just to kind of know if there were out-of-the-box things we could do to solve some of this, too, in the interim. So I don't know. And the rest of you probably all have questions, too.
Yeah, I guess that was kind of my question, like, well, just trying to understand, like, what we will not have for the next chunk of time. Like, what would it normally look like, and how is it going to be now?
What it looks like right now until next week, basically. You have one deputy on duty to patrol that area that I described.
Okay.
From right now, since school started, we've adjusted the hours. So that person's on from 7 in the morning till 6 at night.
Okay.
And then on the weekends, it's 2 in the afternoon till 2 in the morning. When school's not in session, let me step back a little bit. The reason we alter those hours is to maintain some order up at the school zone.
Oh, we know.
When school's not in session, then they would work 10 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. During the weekdays, Friday and Saturday still 2 to 2, and I think Sunday is either 10 to 10 or 12 to midnight. So that's usually what the city gets 7 days a week.
Okay.
Sometimes they are pulled away if there's a call in the county that needs more than one person. During the days off, if the person who's designated to patrol the city of Grand Marais takes a day off or they call in sick, well then there's nobody there. It is the county cars coming in to take the calls and do what needs to be done. So it's not like this hasn't gone on. It's gone on obviously much less than what's coming. But getting back to advertising and hiring, as soon as we can get a viable applicant that can pass the backgrounds and is qualified to take that position, the city of Grand Marais will be their first assignment, I guess would be the best way to state it. So we will backfill those 2 positions, absolutely, but when, I don't know. It's
Sure.
very tough.
Okay. Thanks for that. Thank you. We haven't made a practice of trying to dictate how the sheriff's office uses their resources in the city ever. We've got open lines of communication about if there's issues that we would like to see some work on, but in terms of staffing, hours, patrol schedules, patrol areas, any of that stuff, we've always trusted the sheriff's office to make the right decisions about where they need to put their resources. Right. And I don't think this is any different of a situation than that right now. They're sharing with us good information about some tight resources, and I still trust them to make the right decisions about where they're going to spend those resources. They've got the awareness of what's going on in the county from a public service perspective. Yeah.
Within your larger group, have there been any changes in rural areas with the knowledge, just in the city, there's less law enforcement? So has there been any increased activity that you're aware of in other rural areas with the thought in mind, like, oh, we can go over here now because they're also really, anything like that you've heard of?
I haven't heard anything like that. No, I can't think of an instance where I've heard anything like that.
Okay, so people shouldn't be worried or be, concerned of something like that.
No, I don't think so. Like I said, with the deputies, and this is, the discussion we're going to have with them, you know, obviously, they need to patrol the entire county, but there's nothing wrong with, you know, maybe for half of your shift, you patrol from Cascade to County Road 14 and, you know, up to the Trout Lake Road, I don't know. You know, whatever, and then the other half of the shift, I'll come and do that.
Right.
So, but there's, I mean, there's, like I said, we're not going to abandon patrolling the city whatsoever. That can't happen, obviously. I mean, most of the population, and as you saw from the breakdown of the calls we had.
Well, not anybody's, only Tracy saw that so far.
Oh.
Oh, I
Oh.
thought, didn't we send?
Anyways.
It's not quite what we want. We're still working
Yeah.
on
Oh.
getting some information to you about the number and types of calls.
Yeah.
Okay.
And-
Yes,
and
I'm
we'll be
sorry.
Sending that out.
So we transitioned to a new records management system in 2018. So anything older than 2018, we don't have good records for it. But I took those numbers in the 2018. This is the percentage of calls, of the total calls that actually in Grand Marais. So in 2018, 53% of all the calls in Cook County were in Grand Marais.
53% of the calls in what year?
2018.
2018? Okay.
And Grand Marais means
Grand Marais.
cut face to
Yeah.
devil track to four
Right.
corners.
That whole,
Yep.
yeah, that larger area.
And 2019, 69%. But that number may be a little skewed because of COVID.
Oh, sure.
2020 it was down to 45%, 21 was 45%, 22 was 34%, and 23 was 30%. So they have gone down, obviously, but, you know, even in 22, you're 34%, that's a third of all the calls the sheriff's office takes came from the city of, the city of Grand Marais patrol area, I should say.
So I guess, and that's really what I was looking for then, is what is the percentage of that? Are they emergency calls, like a fire or a health event, an ambulance? Or is it a concern, like a business was broken into or something, a personal resident had issues?
Well, let's see here.
Trying to give the people in our community and all of us an understanding of what is the risk.
Sure.
Or maybe there isn't.
Right.
But we're all going to make assumptions unless we know.
Also, I think to prepare for more conversations about, are there other strategies we should be considering?
Yeah, a few things. Like I mentioned to him, maybe we try to get our own community officer that's around town or whatever.
I know. Is that different from a police officer?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, last year you had you brought on board a gentleman from
Minneapolis.
the school, correct?
Yeah,
Was he still in school or just,
he was still in school.
right? So he wasn't able to carry a gun or anything, but he was still patrolling
Mhm.
and could relay information right to you guys.
Right, and we did the same again this year.
Okay.
It's basically, it's a paid internship.
Right.
Basically. And so what a community service officer does is, yes, they patrol, they can answer, traffic accidents,
Yeah.
they can take care of that. And, many of the ordinances they can go take care of, they cannot write citations,
Right.
but they can go speak with somebody that, your dog is barking, or, you're shooting off fireworks, things like that. We kind of have it laid out, the things that they cannot respond to, obviously, any crime of violence they cannot respond to, because the only things they carry are, a taser and pepper spray. So, but yeah, that's worked out great the last couple of years.
Is that a seasonal thing then?
It is, yeah. And it's basically, it's their summer vacation that they
Right.
spend doing that. There's also the idea of a constable. Where a constable is not a licensed peace officer, but they can cite people for ordinance violations, things like that. They can, patrol.
And they have a really cool title.
So there.
I didn't know they still existed.
What's that?
When Daryl Rosebaca still had us handling that in our civics class, I thought that was no longer a thing. I didn't realize that was still.
Well, it's and maybe it goes by a different term now, but that's the one I came up.
Oh. So,
All right.
do we don't know then how this breaks out though yet. That's something we still need to get?
Well, I do kind of. So in
Okay.
2018, there were 54 fire calls out of all of this, well, there were, in 2018, the city of Grand Marais had 1,279 total calls, 54 of those were fire calls.
54?
Yep.
Okay.
In 2019, there were 49, but that was, like I said, there were 2,566 calls in the city of Grand Marais.
That year.
And so 49 of those were fire calls.
You have ambulance and first responder calls in that number too?
This is just strictly fire. We can go to all three of them.
But the number of calls that a deputy was paged out to is,
Well, they don't go to every first responder call.
yeah.
I mean, if they're close and if there's something they can do, if it's something serious, they will go. If it's somebody who's just fallen down and they just, the ambulance responds to do a lift assist, they'll respond. If it's, if somebody's just has a broken arm, they probably won't, because there's not a lot a deputy can do, or any one of us can do, except stand there and wait for the ambulance to get there.
So we want to search outside of that and just say when was it just a response by a sheriff's officer, right?
Well, that
Maybe
know.
just give us a little time to help
Yeah.
dig in on this and see if we can't sort through and figure out some way to present it that is
Mhm.
helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2018, there were 188 calls for service that involved ambulance, first responders, and fire.
You guys work at all, maybe you don't want to divulge that or not, but I mean, with how many state troopers do we have in our county? Three? Three, okay. So obviously you know kind of like where they are. And there might be some overlap where one comes through town.
Well,
I mean, I know they're state highway,
yeah,
but they're also law enforcement.
they will respond to some types of calls. They won't respond to others.
Yeah.
It's just, their types of policies that they
Right.
have.
So what I'm getting at is,
Mhm.
you're trying to do a schedule with what the people you have and the area you gotta cover, so a lot of it though too is going to be like, where are our guys gonna be and what kind of response time do we have if something happens in this area? So, you're trying to close that box of response time that is reasonable, that you feel is,
Yeah, I mean.
can be obtained with the guys you
We
have.
try to do that with the entire county. I mean,
Right.
If there's something going on in Grand Portage, we want people patrolling close to Grand Portage. If there's
Right.
an event out at the ski hill, we want people close to the ski hill.
Right.
So, yeah, we do try to take that into account.
Okay.
I'm assuming seasonally it's a lot busier in the summer than winter.
A little bit.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's
it
make
is.
sure you're not off on that one.
It's much busier. I mean, we of course, in the winter, I mean, we take calls at the ski hill.
Right.
We are, by statute, we have to investigate every snowmobile accident. It's not the DNR, it's the sheriff's office.
Oh, okay.
So things like that, yeah. But of course, yeah, the numbers are nowhere near what they are in the summertime, because there's a lot of people here, but it's not like it is now.
Right.
I noticed you did print some suggested tips out for people to, be sensible themselves at what they could do, but I'm wondering, I know I'm moving on to potential solutions and I don't mean to have a concrete answer, but I'm wondering if there are things we could do a little bit even more specific if business owners or residents have more concerns of things they could do for themselves to help themselves. Maybe that could be part of it later when we talk about where this heads. And then I also wondered, if you travel much, you start to realize that somebody doesn't stop you for a parking ticket commonly in other places. You just get snapped on a camera and then you're busted. So I was just wondering if there's other technology things that maybe we could be thinking of or making use of for some of the more basic things that we want coverage or help for too.
That would be a good question for your attorney, because I know Many of the prosecutors in the state won't prosecute, you know, tickets that have been generated from cameras or things like that. So,
That's good to know.
I don't, whatever your attorney
Well,
thinks.
our prosecuting attorney is Molly. so
Right.
We could have that conversation with her.
Yeah.
And speaking of attorneys, we have a contract with the sheriff's office, and it specifies a number of patrol hours. So we're being notified that's not going to happen. And I think that it would be a good thing for us to say that's okay right now. I mean, we know that we're entering into an official conversation with the county board to talk about some of these joint powers agreements, and this is on the list. So I think we have an intention and a schedule to talk about getting it updated. And in the meantime, we should just be clear, we don't have any intention of trying to take any action based on what Pat's telling us today. That we understand where he's coming from, and we're happy with what his response is, and we're ready to talk about the contract just on its own schedule.
Any other questions or things or other thoughts?
Anybody want to go to law enforcement school?
Holy, yeah. You know, it's interesting to read the comment here that I understand money is the driving thing behind everybody getting a job and getting out of school and whatever, but also where you might want to work might be a positive thing too. It's like, do I want to work over here where there's 7,000 calls a month, or I want to work over here where there's 40 calls a month? I mean, you know,
Well, that's the-
I mean, and it's all quality of life, and it's all where I want to live and where my friends are,
Yeah.
families are. I get that, but, you know, we do have an attractive area here, and maybe certain people might be missing the thrust behind some of that, I guess. I don't know how to.
I think that's always been what has allowed us to exist in the pay structure that we have.
Yeah.
Because it's always been true that if you want to work in the Twin Cities, you're going to get paid a lot more. And
There's a reason for it, too.
well, there's many reasons for
Many
it, right? And
reasons
yet
for
we
it.
still have folks choose this place.
Right.
And now the market's just changed enough where that reason isn't enough to fill the spots.
No, it's, I mean, I have a friend of mine, he's a lieutenant with Minneapolis PD, and he was up a couple weeks ago, and he told me that what they're making for money down there, and it's obscene. It's
For first year,
for anybody.
is that they're short, they're
They're
short.
But it's
Yeah.
not even
Right.
the on-duty work. They're working security at Target on their
Right.
days off, and they're making $150 an hour.
Yeah.
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 So we need to build a target.
I was gonna say, there may be a few looking for work because they just closed a few targets, so.
Right.
No, yeah, I get it. I mean, it's,
And, you know, getting back to the signing with the bonuses.
right.
You know, I get these ads come across my desk all the time, and, you know, for example, I think it was either Fairbanks or Anchorage, and they are starting people off at $110,000 a year, and they're giving them a $60,000 signing bonus.
To get moved.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, to live in Alaska.
Yeah.
I would take that.
Don't go, okay?
Not yet.
I
Not
would
yet.
tell my wife, if this was 10 years ago, we'd be throwing back our stuff.
Well, and those you have to be cautious of too, because a lot of times people just leave anyways.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
that
that's
doesn't
true.
assure that you have a long-term employee.
No.
Usually that's kind of an ineffective
Well, the nursing
strategy.
industry experienced the same thing,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it's,
Traveling nurses, we don't have traveling deputies yet.
Well, they all do. It's a pretty big county.
yeah.
You know, but I'm just saying,
Well, you know, that's actually a good point
You
you
know,
brought up,
it's kind of
because we've discussed.
temporary in and out.
We had a residency requirement for our deputies, that they
Oh.
had to live in Cook County.
Yeah.
Well, we've softened that up now, because we actually have a deputy who lives in Finland. And he cannot take his squad home. He has to leave his squad in Cook County.
Okay.
You know, and we're fortunate enough where he has relatives in the West End, he can leave his squad car there. So, and you know, we've even discussed softening that up. You know, if somebody wants to live in Silver Bay, if they can afford a place in Silver Bay, that's fine. So, yeah, I don't know, we're trying to think of anything we can to build the attractiveness.
It's just that of, you know, like you said, the community service officer, is that right? And then downtown Minneapolis always has their ambassadors, which are out on the street, and they give directions, and they tell you this and that and the other thing. But, you know, presence is important. And with a lot of our tourists, I think you could maybe somehow create that in the summertime, a little combo pack of something like that. It might leave some of it, maybe, you know, and watch some of the more common things that are easy, parking and other things that might be, I don't know. I mean, there might be some things to kind of get us through some of it if.
Yeah, we'll still look for a, you know, community service officer in the summertime. Where that's, and for the most part, those are pretty easy to get because a lot of law enforcement programs, you need to complete an internship.
You need to do something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So yes, we're going to keep that open as well, and hopefully by next summer we'll have 2 more full-time deputies.
Yeah.
Well, wait a second, there won't be an apartment building built until after.
Jason said they could live at his house.
Oh, well, okay then.
Pitch
a tent.
We can fix that.
You know a guy? Could I ask a quick question to Sheriff?
Oh.
So I don't want to be improper procedure. I'm just, what are the top impediments to recruitment? Is it just wages? Is it distance? Is it housing? Like, what do you?
It's the wages and housing.
Okay.
Basically.
To attract people for
Because
you.
I assume, but.
we've had deputies come up and work here for a little bit, and you know they just can't find something.
A reasonable place to live.
Mhm.
Okay.
Affordable.
Yeah.
Yep.
I got that story.
Are the numbers, what's the school like? I mean, what's the state doing to try to get people into this field? Other than
Or could we grow our own?
we've already kind of negated a lot of stuff. We gotta get that confidence back. So what are they doing to improve that? Because it spills out to everybody, all the counties, not just us. The big cities, you know. Are they doing anything to get the numbers, try to get the numbers up? Is there any type of positive?
Yeah, we have met as sheriffs and chiefs of police and discussed this with the post board from the state. And, you know, there was some discussion, well, you know, the standards in the state of Minnesota to be a peace officer, they're quite high. I mean, they used to be the highest in the nation, probably not the highest anymore, but they're ranked right up there. There was discussion about, you know, maybe softening those standards, but I don't think that's the answer.
No, yeah. No, I don't think that's the answer either. The answer is trying to get numbers.
Right.
Right.
I think what it is right now, you know, basically, you can go be a cop and make this much, or you can go be an electrician and make this much and not have any headaches.
Right.
Well, and they can't fill any of those in the trades either. They're all doing the same thing. So
This
it
is
gets
not-
back to your
It's
first
just,
comment. They've
yeah.
told us for a long
It's-
time,
I know, yeah, we don't know.
demographers have said,
Problem.
we're going to be short of people,
Yeah.
no matter what it is.
The numbers have gone down to the point where Hibbing used to have its own law enforcement school. And I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, they had to shut the doors because I think they had
No numbers?
six students in their last class up there. And there used to be, you know, 60 to 70 students in the class up there.
Wow. I keep thinking like it'd be great if we could grow our own, like have, you know, some kids from our high school who are interested, like somehow get them funneled.
Well, you do have some, don't you?
Well, I was just gonna say that there are, let me count, 4, So out of the 13 licensed peace officers we have, 4 of them, including myself, grew up in Cook County. So yeah, it's getting to that point where
Yeah.
we're getting there, yeah.
Yeah.
And your CSOs? been in there
CSO,
too?
yeah, CSO grew up in Cook County as well.
So we can just get a homegrown constable? when we get
Hey,
there?
there you go.
Yeah.
Right. Any other questions or thoughts? Well, as Mike said, this just adds to our list of other conversations with the county commissioners, so.
Right.
You know
And
where we stand.
As soon as I find someone, or we find someone, I will let you know.
Oh, I do have one question, just you started in on this at the beginning, but just so we're kind of clear. We have 2 people, that's your normal. And is that based on calls or just the fact to even do any staffing, it requires 2 people just to cover everything and?
Well, the contract spells out, like Administrator Ross said, it spells out the number of hours that we are supposed to provide. So when you take that number of hours divided by 2,080, the normal work year, it actually comes out to 2.8
Oh.
full-time employees. Is
Okay.
what we are supposed to provide.
Okay, that's good to know.
Which is not 24/7, 2.8 people, right? That's 2.8 people working a regular work week, so it's
Yeah.
not what they really do.
Right.
Right.
Do you see that, like, as sufficient? Is that what you would want to provide the services we need in the city of Grand Marais? I mean, talking about the ideal, forget the fact
Yeah. Like,
that
is
we don't
that
have a
an ideal
cloning
number,
machine.
or-
Well, when
Is that too
when the
much?
city of Grand Marais had their own police department, and I worked for the police department, there were 3 full-time city patrol officers, and there were 2 part-timers. So that offered the city, oh boy, that was 20-hour-a-day coverage. Because you had the first day, the day deputy came on 10 to 6, the night deputy would work 6 to 2.
So a 20-hour day, you said. Just wonder, like, what should we be? I mean, I knew it was in the contract, but is that the ideal? I mean, when we think through what it maybe should be, what should it look like? It'd be good
Right.
to know.
Well, as we're experiencing this, I think it's important for you to let the sheriff know if you are hearing things too.
Mhm.
And that's kind of an open conversation. This is about what level of service do we want to pay for? And as a community, not just as a city, but as a community. And I don't think there is an ideal unless we can answer the question, well, what do we need them to do for us?
Mhm.
And so that's what we really want to start thinking about. And, if they have more data for us to look at about the types of calls that they are answering, then I think it'll be up to us to think about, well, which of these do we really need them to deal with for us? And which are we willing to look at a different direction, and which are we really not prioritizing at all, and set that level of service?
Yeah.
All right, anything else? All right.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks guys for working on this.
I was
Appreciate it.
30 years younger.
All right, council and staff reports. Hey, Patrick, why don't you go first tonight, so we don't forget you?
All right. So
I know.
the curb and gutter replacement is going to start tomorrow for the rest of the project. And next week, they'll start on the sidewalks. This week, they finished the cutting where they...
The subcut?
Subcut, where they
Subcut.
remove all the random stones and less equal, materials. And replace them with something more flat. Sorry for my...
Compactable.
Compactable. And then the only other note I have on here is that next week, or starting tomorrow, throughout the next couple, probably weeks, parking on side streets will be optimal, because getting in the driveway while they're working on the sidewalks and the cutouts. What's the word for the,
Subcuts. No, wait.
not subcuts, the
No.
The aprons,
aprons.
Oh, the aprons.
very technical term.
Yeah, you won't want to drive over that wet concrete. That's it.
Very good.
Mike?
So, right before last meeting, Attorney Hood and I began a conversation about a new state statute that clarifies it is now legal for cities to use construction manager at risk as a contracting strategy. That might seem strange to some of you because, of course, we did this 6 years ago when we built the Public Works garage. At that time, it wasn't clear, but we went through a lot of effort to create a process that still required public bidding of all of the work that was done, and we were satisfied that we were meeting state requirements. Now that this law is in place, it puts a process in the beginning where we have to do a request for qualifications and proposals for construction manager services, which we have not yet done for City Hall and the liquor store. So now we're going to. And we emailed out today to you a form that is our suggested request for proposals and qualifications that would ask for construction manager firms to submit to us by October 24th. And I think then we will have enough time to evaluate those proposals and look at them at the last meeting in October. Maybe the next meeting in November. In any case, one of the other requirements of the new statute is that you create a committee to review these proposals of at least 3 members, and that one of the committee members needs to have some expertise in the construction field. So I took the liberty to call Anton and see if he'd be willing to serve, and he did say yes. My recommendation to you is you make the committee be Mayor Benson, myself, and Anton, that we will look at the proposals and make recommendations to you, and that hopefully we'll be able to make an official selection of a construction manager in the near future. The document that we provided today is basically a reworking of the same document that we used to do this for the Public Works garage. And it's updated in terms of the description of the project, the dates. We simplified some of the work in terms of what we're asking for, outfits to provide to us, and this is the last bit. The state statute also is very clear. We need to get 2 proposals in order to select someone. So we're going to be out there shaking the trees, looking for interested construction manager firms. We know some. We're asking LHB to help us get some more names. We're also talking to everybody else we know. We want to talk to you if you're interested in this project, and it says that in our proposal. We'll be reaching out directly to some folks, and hopefully we will get somebody.
All right.
So,
Is there an action we have?
please
Yes.
authorize the release of this request for proposals qualifications for our construction manager at risk for the City Hall Liquor Store project.
And I'd like to make a motion.
I would so move. What he said.
I'm not going to verbally say that out loud
Okay, good.
again. I'd like to second that.
I'll second.
Any other questions or further conversation on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will carry on.
Anything else, Mike?
Nope.
All right. Craig?
No, I was in Duluth at the dentist when I had a Parks and Trail meeting, so I will report next week
Okay.
on what was discussed at that meeting
And the
yesterday. That meeting was yesterday.
the public meeting for the park master plan is October 3rd? Do I have that right?
It's the same, isn't it before the city council?
It's before the park board meeting.
Before the park board meeting, that's right, yeah. It's before the park board meeting, at 3 o'clock maybe?
It's not on my schedule, but I think that's true. The park board meeting is October 3rd, so I'm
Right.
pretty sure it's at
It's
3
in
o'clock.
here before the park board meeting, and we meet at.
Oh, yeah, 3 o'clock?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I have. Okay, so if anyone is interested in that, and I'm assuming everyone gave their feedback on that, and anyone out there in the listening audience who have not yet participated, please do. The park's for everyone. So, okay.
Yep.
Hi.
So I met with, in 2 meetings, with a Cook County Local Energy Project about 2 hours ago. And really the only thing I wanted to highlight from that was that the Clean Energy Community Tour is happening on October 15th, and register for it. So that'll be a lot of fun. You can find it at their website, cookcountylocalenergy.org. And then the other thing, I met with Arrowhead Animal Rescue, and we're going to be having more talks about that. They had quite a bit of fundraising they had this summer, so I'll get more information about that at some point, but probably have to talk about that soon. That's it.
Todd Ford, Patrick, and I met last week and before that, so I'm pretty excited. The two of them have done a lot of work, and we should have our new communication ready to go from the county, the city, and other entities, which you'll be, the HRI and EDA will be invited to this as well, and our healthcare and schools. And it will be, at this point, we're saying a bi-monthly communication, very brief and short, just highlights and maybe also some interesting community events going out to all of our legislators and the IRRR. So we'll be introducing that at the October 12th joint leadership meeting, which, by the way, all of you are invited. Her invite list was really dated, and I gave Jana a new list with all of us and the current county and the current school board members and all that, and hopefully she'll get that cleaned up. I think between all the different changes, it just never got synced very well. But it is 5:30 on October 12th. So we'll present that and kind of get buy-in. I'll go out to the townships as well, and HR and EDA, whatever, and just see who wants to play ball. But we think that's a great opportunity to build some relationships and just give them some insights. If they want to know more, they can reach out. But it's really important for their staffers in particular to know what's going on, and they have a pretty broad range of geography to cover. So we're kind of hoping this helps them with things like that. So thanks a lot, Patrick and Todd Ford, for doing that and to make it super efficient to do, and making it look really sharp too. Just a heads up, I'm still tossing around this short stay, and I'd like to kind of get ready for some more conversations, and I'd like to consider the possibility of possibly adding some limit, just overall number limits within the city because of our somewhat scrambled zoning.
It's
Due
not
to the
scrambled, it
history.
is well placed. Anyway.
So I'm going to gather some more information so we can kind of have a conversation, just to talk it through a little bit more. The other thing I'd like to kind of have a conversation about with some things I heard at Fisherman's Picnic and then with the master park plan is, what kind of sports are people interested in our community anymore? Like, I heard the disappointment that there weren't baseball tournaments at Fisherman's Picnic, which, yeah, great, it's been around forever, but they haven't been, I think, partially because of COVID. But I'm not sure if they're teams anymore. I don't know if that's a thing people like. It'd be great if they do, but do we know that? What is it that people do want to do that way? I mean, your master plan includes still having a ballpark down there. Is that a community well thought of thing anymore? I don't know. But I was wondering if maybe it's time to ask that question to the larger community. What kinds of things really have you I know there's a sort of ad hoc soccer group, right, that plays, and Maybe there's other things people are interested in. I just don't know. So I thought maybe that might be something to explore, what really is important. And then I'd like to talk to planning and zoning again about downtown parking in a variety of ways. And us as a
So
group
ominous.
too, zoning. Yes. So there, that's all I have.
I've got nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Really?
But I will. But I don't now. I will next time.
Okay.
That's
All
fine.
right. Then that's it. I think we are adjourned for the night. Thank you, Chris.